Second issue I would talk about here tonight and tell you the reason why I'm running is, after all, it's all about securing our country's future. We have to be focused on national security. The bottom line is, our battle to protect our God-given freedoms, it's not going to stop in Afghanistan. It hasn't stopped in Iraq, but it's not going to stop in Afghanistan either. We must focus on rebuilding the U.S. military and strengthening our weapon systems so that we will be prepared to confront whatever threat might come our way. You know, it wasn't long ago that we were watching on the news the end of the Cold War. And if you recall, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, for the most part, we experienced a relatively peaceful time period in the world. Now listen, there's always going to be conflicts in different corners of the globe. But for the most part, things were relatively quiet. And the reason why they were quiet was because it was very apparent which nation was in charge and which nation could deal with whatever threat might come her way. That, of course, was the United States of America, and if any nation in the world has to have that status and that position, I would hope that it would be us, because we are a nation that's firmly grounded in truth, and I don't believe we've ever abused that power as we've been a part of the world's activities. So national security is absolutely significant. And whether you like it or not, the news will remind you every night we're still engaged in a war. Our enemy is the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. Their mission is to get a nuclear weapon and to destroy American lives. If they can get a biological weapon, they'll use them to destroy American lives. The only difference is these men and women, these enemy combatants, they're not wearing a uniform. They're in street clothes, and the weapon's under those clothes, and it's boarding our airplanes. We've got to make sure that we continue to focus on national security issues, because the reality is, let's face it, now the world has the perception that we've grown weak. That we've grown weak economically, and that our military is growing weak because it's scattered so far across the globe. I think I just read, 133 locations we have military men and women stationed at this current point in this year. The reason why China is now starting to push the limits, why North Korea is starting to rattle their swords, why Iran is starting to make threats and not follow up on some of the orders that they've been given by the United Nations, is because they're all testing the limits. Their perception is that America's grown weaker, and now maybe they can push it because America just might not have what it takes to confront them. We've got to make sure America's strong as we move into the future. And third, I don't know how much time I'm taking here, but nonetheless, we'll move on. There's the card.
Minutes, yeah.
We're up to what?
15 minutes.
Okay, I've already used 15.
This means you're at 18.
Oh.
And this means you're done.
Okay, there we go. All right, we got to go. Don't count this against me. The third priority that we have to address is cultural security. And by that, I mean the matters of the heart. Yes, we have to address economic security. Yes, we have to make sure that the government does what it's supposed to do, secure us from our national, international, and international enemies. But thirdly, we have to make sure that we address cultural issues. And by these, the matters of the heart, I'm referring to things like decency, honesty, integrity, personal responsibility, honor. Those things matter. And in fact, in the final analysis, they may be one of the single greatest factors in determining whether or not we can continue to be successful and prosperous as a nation. Let's face it, history would tell us, and all observations would prove, that America's strength and prosperity has come from three things. A combination of her freedom, her personal responsibility, and morality. Without any one of those things, we're going to slip. And you'll have to decide for yourself if we're weakening in any of those areas, and perhaps that's at the root of why we're slipping in some areas. We're still the greatest nation on the face of the earth, there's no question. And we can be better. And that, of course, is why I'd like to represent you in the United States Congress. I think I will close with this. I have to admit, you never know how fast 20 minutes will go or how long it will take in some instances, so I'll just wrap up with this, I guess. Melanie and I were at the county fairs. I mentioned my mom spent a lot of time out there. Many of you were out there. And one of the things that happened repeatedly, men and women would come up to me. They'd get right in your face, not in a bad way, but they'd get very close and personal so they could make their point. And they would get right in your face, and this is what they'd say. So if I vote for you, what are you going to do for me? And I'll tell you, Night after night, I would drive home and I would think about that. The fact of the matter is, it is that attitude that has gotten us in the situation that we're in. The fact that we've come to believe that the federal government owes us everything, that should meet every one of our needs, and when possible, give us any benefit we could possibly desire at the whim, regardless of cost. It's that attitude that's causing us our problems. Don't listen to the liberals tell us that we've outgrown a Constitution and that the Constitution has failed us. Don't let people convince you that the Creator, who gave us life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, those rights, that He has abandoned us or that He has failed us. Don't let anyone convince you that the United States government, our American system of government, has failed us. It has not. What has failed us is, too often, many of our people making our decisions based on selfish interest, electing men and women who were more concerned about their political careers and their political futures and their parties than they were about upholding the Constitution, honoring the God who created us, and quite honestly, protecting the system of government that we've been gifted with. It's an exciting time in American history because we have opportunities like we haven't had in recent years. It's time for the American spirit to come alive, to grow among our people and raise up leaders just like we did in Massachusetts, to truly move America back to those fundamental principles that we all agree on to make her future brighter than we can ever imagine. If I am elected, and I hope to have your vote, but if I am elected to the United States Congress, my goal will not be to pass new legislation, to create new programs, to pass new spending packages and policies that will give people more benefits. My goal is to eradicate and eliminate all of those laws, policies, programs, regulations that have been piled so high and are sinking our ship. We can do it, and I ask for your help as we move forward this year. Thank you for listening.